Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm explaining why the Rams have the best offense in the NFC West. Yes, the Rams, again, in a long time, it's been a while since we wore these colors, since this guy played. The Rams have the best offense in the NFC West. First, I'm going to back that off with some team statistics. I'm going to compare all four teams. I'm going to compare points per game, pass yards per game, rush yards per game, total yards per game, and third down conversion percentage. First off, the Rams have the most out of all the teams in the division and the league with 35.7 points per game. The Rams have not scored that much since these days. And then you have the Cardinals, who are second in the division with points per game, which is 18.7, which is 19th in the league, which you jump from the Rams from first to the Cardinals with 19th, and that's like double the points there, so there's something. And then the 49ers are third in the division in scoring with 17 per game. In the first two games, they didn't score that many. They didn't even score a touchdown in the first two games. Scoring 39 against the Rams helped that number boost up a little bit. And then the Seahawks are fourth in the division with 16 points per game, which is 27th in the league, but they would probably have more than the 49ers if the 49ers did not explode for 39 against the Rams. Next, we have pass yards, and the Rams are second in the division. I'm gonna rank the Rams first because I'm arguing that they're the best offense in the division, so I'm gonna go with them first. They're second in the division though in pass yards per game with 279. Jared Goff is looking like a first overall pick. He only averaged 155 yards per game in the 7 games he played last year, but now he's almost 300 per game. And the Cardinals are actually first in the division with 284 yards, and they're fourth in the league. But when I get to the next stat, the rush yards, you're going to see why the Cardinals have that many pass yards, because their rush game, it's not good. And then you have the Seahawks with 226 passing yards per game, which is 17th in the league, and then you have 187.7 for the 49ers, which is 25th in the league. Again, if they did not explode against the Rams, which Brian Hoyer did, they were only at like 127 per game for the first two. So their pass offense is it's horrendous. Now on the rush yards, the Rams are third in the division, which, that might not sound good if I'm trying to argue that they're the best offense in the division. But in the first game, Todd Gurley didn't really impress. He only had 40 yards on 19 carries. But in the past two games, he almost has 200 yards total, which is pretty good. He's fourth in the league. So the Rams' rush game is coming along. They average 95.3 yards per game on the ground, which is 20th in the league. Plus, Todd Gurley almost had I think he had every snap at running back last game. They need depth. We lost Benny Cunningham in free agency. Lance Dunbar suffered a knee injury, and it's just not the same running back group. And Todd Gurley is going to have to take over that, and he's going to get more yards. But actually, the 49ers have the most yards per game, which is 107.7, which is 14th in the league, but their starting running back, Carlos Hyde, has the third most in the league, which is pretty good. And then next you have the Seahawks with 96.7, which is right above the Rams, and with 19th in the league. They have Eddie Lacy, they have C.J. Prosise, they have Thomas Rawls, but none of those guys are the ones that are leading the way. It's Chris Carson. And then for the Cardinals, they lost David Johnson. So, like I said, they had 284 pass yards per game, which is a lot, most in the division. But how many rush yards do they have? Only 59 per game, and that's 31st in the league. Now I'm going to add pass yards and rush yards together, and I'm going to get total yards per game. The Rams are first in the division with 374.3 yards per game, and that is 7th in the league, which, again, the Rams' offense hasn't been good in a long time, but that right there, that shows that they're improving. And then you have the Cardinals next with that passing attack, obviously, but the rush yards, that's holding them back. If they got that up, they might perhaps have the first, but they have 343 yards per game, which is 12th in the league. And then next you have the Seahawks, who have 323 yards per game, which is 15th in the league. That's right behind the Cardinals. And then the 49ers, again, if they didn't explode against the Rams, they would be a lot lower. They'd probably have around the 32nd in the league. They would be hovering around the bottom. But instead they have 295 yards per game, which is 25th in the league. The last offensive stat that I'm going to cover is third down percentage. No offense is good unless they can convert on third down, and the Rams lead the division with 47.4%. Last year they were around 30%, so a 17% increase is incredible. That's almost 1 out of every 2 times they convert on third down, which is just amazing. That's the sign of a good offense. Next, you have the Cardinals with 41.7%. That's pretty decent, second in division, so okay. And then the Seahawks are only one for 3 on third down, so 1 out of every 3 times. I mean, they're not 1 for 3; they're 15 for 45. That goes down to 1 for 3, which the Rams are 1 for 2, and the Seahawks are 1 for 3. So the Rams, pretty good there. And then the 49ers are the worst in the division with 31.7%. They convert on less than 1 out of every 3 third downs. That is not good. Against the Rams, you know, it looked good. They scored 39 points. It wasn't enough for them, but the Rams, right there, lead the division in third down conversion percentage. Now I'm going to go over the summary of how each offense is going over the season, who their key performers are, if it's their quarterback, their running back, how their wide receiving core is, have they suffered any injuries, the key injuries. So I'm going to go over that. I'm going to go through each team right now. Alright, so starting off with the Rams. The Rams are a much improved offense from last year under new head coach Sean McVay. He's looking pretty good as a head coach. Jared Goff is completing 70% of his passes, and he has a 5-to-1 touchdown ratio. Last year, I believe he had 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in 7 games. Now he has 5 touchdowns and 1 interception in 3 games. It's an incredible improvement from him. Todd Gurley is improving every single game. He's looking like his rookie self. And the Rams' newly acquired wide receivers, Samuel Watkins from the trade with the Bills, Robert Woods, free agency pickup from the Bills, and draft pickups Cooper Kupp and Gerald Everett were looking like good picks. They have brought Rams new life, and the Rams have the best offense in the division. Alright, now on to the Seahawks. The story of the Seahawks this year is that they could not score points, but in the third game they did explode for 27, which, if that's exploding, that's pretty bad. But let's talk about the run game, because that looks like that stands out to me. Like, they have Thomas Rawls, CJ Prosise, and Eddie Lacy. That they have combined for 18 carries and 27 rush yards this season. But their leading rusher is Chris Carson. He's carrying the bulk of he's getting the bulk of the load. And who is this guy? You know, it was expected to be the other 3 that were gonna get the most carries, but Chris Carson, no way was he thought to be the #1 guy. And Russell Wilson has a 5-0 touchdown to interception ratio. He hasn't been making any mistakes, but that offensive line, it doesn't look too good. And Jimmy Graham has been a disappointment for the Seahawks. He has 11 catches for 81 yards, which is a 7.4 average in 3 games. When you trade a first-round pick and you're starting center for him, like in the past couple seasons, he has impressed, but this season he has been disappointing so far. Now I'm on to the Cardinals. Like I said before, the Cardinals have the 4th best passing attack in the NFL, but is that because they're throwing it every time, or is that because their wide receivers are good, or is that because they have no rush game? But I'm going to say it's because they don't have a rush game and because they're throwing the ball a lot. They average 40 attempts per game, which is crazy, and that is due to the rush game being very poor. They do not have David Johnson. Chris Johnson is their leading rusher. They had to bring him back after the David Johnson injury, and he has 61 yards. I don't know what games he rushed in. I don't think he rushed in the first one, but he has 61 yards, and he's averaging less than 3 yards per carry. Their run game is non-existent, but a bright side is that Larry Fitzgerald is getting better as he's getting older. He has over 200 yards, or he has 240 yards in 3 games. He's on pace for another 1,000-yard season for the Hall of Famer, the future Hall of Famer, I should say. And Carson Palmer has been pretty disappointing so far, as he has 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He made a lot of key mistakes in the first game against the Lions, and he doesn't look like the same. He's declining. Unlike Larry Fitzgerald, who's getting older and getting better, Carson Palmer is getting worse. Now I'm on to the 49ers, lastly. And in the first 2 games, they did not score a touchdown. In the third game, they did put up 39 points on the Rams and almost sent that game in overtime. They might have even won it. Brian Hoyer has looked pretty average, or actually below average, against the Rams. He looked above average, but in the first 2 games, with no touchdowns, he looked very poor. He has a 2-to-3 touchdown to interception ratio. That's pretty bad. That's the worst out of all of them. All of the quarterbacks in the division, I should say. And he's the only quarterback in the division to have more interceptions than touchdowns. Carson Palmer has the same amount, and the other 2 have a lot more touchdowns than interceptions. But Carlos Hyde is 3rd in the league in rushing, which that's a bright spot for them, and that's what's been leading the team. Like I said, the passing game has been non-existent really that much, and Pierre Garçon for them in the pass game, though, has looked pretty impressive with 240 yards against the Rams. He had 140, and that was a big breakout game for him. I expect him to have a pretty good year because there's no one really else for Brian Hoyer to throw the ball to. Finally, to end this video, I'm going to state my case for the Rams and why they have the best offense in the NFC West. If you look back at the team stats, like I said earlier, the Rams are the highest scoring team in the NFL, so that should make them the best offense in the division. Not that alone. I mean, the pass yards, they're 6th in the league in passing. In the rush game, it's improving, and the Rams, the offense is looking good under Sean McVay. In 2016, the Rams were the lowest scoring team in the NFL. Now they're the highest scoring team in the NFL. That's a lot of improvement. That's thanks to Sean McVay, the new head coach. He's looking like an offensive mastermind because Jared Goff is also improving because last year he had 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in 7 games. Now he has 5 touchdowns and 1 interception in 3 games. He's looking mightily impressive. He's completing 70% of his passes. Todd Gurley is looking like his rookie self. He's had 100 yards in the last game. I expect him to get over 100 yards in a lot more of the remaining games. Last year, that was really hard for him to do because I don't even think he had 100 yards in a single game last year. Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods, those guys, the new additions, are going to provide weapons for Jared Goff, and then Cooper Kupp and Gerald Everett are the the first 2 draft picks for the Rams, and they are looking pretty good. Cooper Kupp not so much in the last game, but he looks like a steal. There was so much hype in the preseason that he was going to catch over 100 passes or whatever, or lead the team in receptions, which in the first game he did have 70-plus yards and a touchdown, and I expect him to have a couple more games like that. And just it falls on Sean McVay. If you watch him, unlike any other coach on defense, he hands the reins to Wade Phillips, and he sits down on his little Gatorade cooler, and he's writing down his notes. Oh, what should the Rams do next? He's locked in on the offense, trying to make them the best in the league, the best in the division. It's also not that the Rams are looking very good. If you look at the stats, if you look at the other teams, they're not really impressive. The Seahawks have had offensive line issues. Their running game has been pretty bad. And if you look at the Cardinals, they have the David Johnson injury, and so their running game is looking pretty bad. And for the 49ers, they have Brian Hoyer as their quarterback. They have a new head coach, and Sean McVay is a new head coach, but the 49ers have a lot to fix than the Rams did. And that's one of the reasons why I think the Rams are, well, that sums it up, really, why the Rams have the best offense in the NFC West. The stats, and they really haven't had any issues like the other teams. So that's it for this video. I hope that more than Rams fans just watch this video. Hopefully some 49ers and Cardinals and Seahawks fans watch this video. And if you are not a fan of the Rams and you're watching this video, thanks for watching it until this point in the video. I really appreciate it. I want to expand my horizon from more than just the Rams. I know the title of the YouTube channel is Rams Nation, but I would like to expand maybe to the NFC West, maybe to the NFL one day. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.